Smack dab in between two of the most well-known singles on Around the World in a Day is a quiet, introspective, and delicate love song titled Condition of the Heart. It's a song that takes nearly 3 minutes before Prince utters a single word. Returning to the show to discuss the lyrics to this beautifully arranged and performed gem is Jerry Bonner. Welcome back to the show, Jerry.
Thank you for having me once again, Jason.
You're welcome. So we're here on Around the World in a Day. We last spoke about Computer Blue, if I recall. A very different song than Condition of the Heart, I would say.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I feel like Condition of the Heart is a bit of a hot and cold song for people. I've heard quite a few that just don't really kind of connect with this particular song. I'm a little bit obsessed with it. I think it's completely different and beautiful, and like I said already, it almost takes 3 full minutes before you get a single word. And so he's got this really long intro. It takes a really long time to get where it's going, almost to the point where some people would get bored, maybe, or
once it gets there, it's pretty fucking great. So
this song is great, and a lot of what I love about it as well, besides just how it's kind of laid out and presented to us, is Prince's delivery of the lyrics, how he sings them and evokes the emotions that he's trying to convey here in the song and in the lyrics. I really love his delivery.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it is just one of those songs like that, and I guess and here's the thing of it. Not to get weird about any kind of fandom or anything like that. I know what I like, and I really don't care if people get hot and cold with things, or like you said, or I know I love it. And okay, you have your own opinion. If you think it's slow or you don't get it, that's cool, man. But to me, it definitely has some real resonance and meaning.
Yeah, agreed. And there's plenty of fans of this song too. I mean, I'm not trying to say that generally speaking, people don't like this song from what I've read. I think it's just I've seen it both ways, where there's folks like us that are really drawn to this song and its beauty, and the beauty in its kind of slow delivery and takes its time to get where it's going. And then when it gets there, it just really hits you hard. Well, other people, that's fine, they don't get it, but I've seen it both ways. I've seen like two extreme ends of the spectrum, I guess, is where the kind of point I'm trying to make with this song, where it's not universally loved, but it's loved by plenty of people still. Prince kind of attempts to take us around the world in this song, not to play too much of a pun on the title of the album, Around the World in a Day, but he does. There's 2 verses in this particular song that mention locations outside of the United States, and to kind of give it like a worldly vibe and make it more kind of paint a picture of where he's going and give us a chance to kind of take a trip with him, kind of a lovelorn trip with him, and a sad trip, but a trip nonetheless. And this is just another kind of piece where I feel like Around the World in a Day album itself has enough loose threads connecting it all together that while as a concept album, it may or may not fit that categorization. But I mean, I just like the little callbacks to, the worldliness of this particular song. And then on an album called Around the World in a Day, just something I picked up. I've been listening to the song pretty much nonstop for the past couple of weeks, and it's one of those songs that I can play and then immediately play over, I think, because it never really wore out its welcome, like some songs of Prince's discography do, especially a lot of his 80s hits that you just can't escape, and as good as they are, sometimes you just don't want to hear them. You want to hear something that you maybe haven't already heard 10,000 times prior to putting it on. And this is one of those songs for me personally that, even though I'm now a married man, 17 years and counting, some of the emotional ties and relationship issues that he speaks to in this song can still be relatable, even if they were, I guess in this point in my distant past. I don't know if you kind of feel the same way about this song.
Yeah, most definitely. I said when we get to the first stanza there, I definitely have a story that relates most personally to my own life, and we can talk about that then. But yes, this is a song that, to me, it's, I mean, obviously there's the one, the one songs or the A songs, and that everybody knows and everybody hears, and but to me this is like a 1A that really only fans kind of like true fans kind of dig. And when you get into it, yeah, like you said, you can just listen to it over and over. And honestly, this is a song that never really fails to hit the same emotional notes like in me and myself when I hear it. It always kind of still gives me that, especially to say with that, the first stanza and the ending stanza, coming back to he kind of wraps it up, nicely at the end, and with the letter and all that stuff. And it always gets me. It always kind of still hits me right where, in the feels, as they say. So,
Oh yeah.
and to that, it's just a genius song, and that's it. Always will be. But I said it's not. Yeah, a lot of people who aren't the casual fan, probably won't know it, but the hardcore fans, or the even mildly hardcore would probably get and be like, oh yeah, that's a great song, and understand it. So
Yeah, you would think. I mean, Around the World in a Day was a pretty popular album at the time. I mean, it's kind of, I mean, a lot of that popularity due to sales was as a direct result of it following up Purple Rain. I mean, nobody can deny that it benefited in
and
terms of
well,
sales.
I mean, you'll get to it, I'm sure, but. Raspberry Beret. I mean, it's a fucking banger. I mean, you follow up with that. That's a classic, pop hit. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
So, you follow, and it's like, oh my God, he just had this massive hit, and look what he's doing now. He's doing like a Beatles type song, and it's crazy good. And then yeah, the rest of the album is a bit of a mix of different stuff, but that's a hook right there. I mean, that's a genius kind of hook. And then when I got the album, it was like, this is different. I mean, but it's cool. But it's different. So yeah, and that was like kind of the the thing that led into more of his obviously, I don't know how you want to say it, more expansive or meditative stuff that kind of went on in Sign of the Times and Love Sexy and etc. So
Yeah. Condition of the Heart is kind of like one of those slow burn songs. And I mean slow burn literally because it takes forever to get going, even though I don't feel antsy as the music progresses. But it does have that kind of slow burn quality to it. And I think it's a little unassuming at times. If you've got Paisley Park on one end, that's the song that precedes it. And then right after it is Raspberry Beret. So if you're, I don't know, like looking at the track listing, you just bought it, it's 1985, you've already heard maybe Raspberry Beret. And you're just like, let's get to the hit. Oh my God, I've got this 6.5 minute song and it's so boring, it's so slow. What is he talking about? Can I just fast forward through this? And that might have been, and I'm just hypothesizing here, but that might have been some people's reaction first up is like, I need to get to Raspberry Beret. Why do I have to sit through this 6.5 minute piano ballad to get to it? Let me hit fast forward.
or you could jump the needle on the record. I mean, if you wanted to hear it right away. But to me, yeah, it's you have to. I don't know. I remember being really moved by it. For lack of a better term, when I first heard it. It delivers kind of its emotional gut punch at the end there. It's kind of like, all right, well, that was pretty awesome. I mean, well, whoa, and I'm feeling things that I didn't think I was going to feel here, but okay. And, but I'm with it. I'm digging it. And
well, that's cool that you connected to the song right away because I didn't. It took me a little bit and I needed to spend some time with it. I would have been 10 when this album came out, and I did get it on tape. And I remember thinking the song was fine and everything, but I didn't. As a 10-year-old, I really didn't connect with it. I wanted Paisley Park, I wanted Raspberry Beret, I wanted Pop Life, and so those were the songs that I was, driven to play over and over again. This And so when in my little example of somebody just eager to get to Raspberry Beret, I might have been projecting a bit because that's how I reacted to this song as a 10-year-old. Now, am I alone in that? I doubt it, but I think it's really cool though that you did connect to it immediately because I did not. So I think we have a very different. We came to the same place ultimately with this
Sure.
song. It just took me longer, and that's okay too. It just takes some songs takes people longer to really get it and really grasp what's being done.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, a little bit of maybe the difference in our ages. I mean, you were 10 and you really hadn't, and not that I had either. I mean, but I said I was like in eighth grade, and but I definitely had crushes and kind of minor girlfriend type things, and I understood a little bit of the heartbreak of it then,
Hmm.
and I could feel that, and that's what I was kind of relating to. As a 10-year-old, I highly doubt that no offense, but you had those kind of emotions going on at that point at 10.
Yeah. No,
Unless
I was in fifth grade. No,
yeah, unless you
I
were some
was.
ladies' man, I don't know, but
Yeah. So I guess if we'll go through the lyrics now, I think now is as good a time as any.
oh, is
So
that what we do here? I didn't
yeah,
realize.
that's what we do. That's what we do. You've been on the show
I
before.
don't what? No, it's been so long, I don't remember.
Okay. Well, let me remind you. The first verse goes, "There was a girl in Paris whom he sent a letter to, hoping she would answer back. Now, wasn't that a foolhardy notion on the part of a sometimes lonely musician? Acting out a whim is only good for a condition of the heart." So right off the bat, he kind of sets the stage for this intercontinental romance that he's attempting to partake in, initiate. It sounds like he's trying to initiate it by sending a letter, hoping that this girl in Paris would answer back. And we don't know yet what happened, but he calls himself a lonely musician. And so
Well, sometimes lonely music.
sometimes lonely musician, right? So, right. So at this time, at the time of writing this song, which I guess he was writing this song in like late '84, he called himself a sometimes lonely musician. So before I start getting into specifically some of the notes that I have about this verse, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about this particular verse and then what connection you might have to it, the lyrics, that is.
Yeah, I definitely do. And just I mean, thinking of it now, it's like when he wrote it, right? And this just is going to more pop culture stuff, just real quick. Is that I wonder why he was sometimes lonely, because according to all the myths and legends and the Chappelle show stuff at this time, he's hanging out with Rick James and Eddie Murphy and Charlie Murphy. I mean, that's when that's set. It's like that 84, 85 period. That's kind of just a funny thing. Is why is he sometimes lonely? He had the world as his oyster, I guess, and I
Mhm.
guess that shows you maybe that celebrity isn't all it's cracked up to be. I mean, which is
Yeah.
kind of proven here and there. Proven no, not here and there, quite often, as it turns out. But anyway, my personal connection. Okay, so and it wasn't until much later that it really, really hit. This was, I guess, it was 1998. My father had passed away that year, and I was dating this girl that I was kind of madly in love with, and she was it seemed to be for a bit, but then I don't know, kind of other forces and other things kind of pulled her away, and then she went to I was already done with college and all that, and was kind of working. I was working at a newspaper at the time and all that stuff, and but she decided that she was going to go to grad school in Pittsburgh for theater. And I don't know, things started getting weird, and as they do, unfortunately, with trying to keep up like a long distance relationship. And then she was supposed to come home for a wedding, my cousin's wedding, and then actually physically. And the internet was a thing then. I mean, you could, and whatever, send. But she actually physically sent me like a letter, a real handwritten
Mhm.
letter, which I wasn't expecting. And it wasn't like a John Doe letter per se, but it was kind of in that vein. because she called me like a friend a couple times in the letter. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Slow your roll here, honey. I think we're more than that. We've established this. But as I said, she was whatever, 400 miles away at this point in Pittsburgh. And, so at first I was like, okay, I kind of wrote like this similar letter back, but then I was just like, you know what? Fuck this. Why am I writing this dumb crap? I'm just going to write exactly what I'm feeling. I'm gonna just lay it on the line, just say everything that I'm thinking, and not pull any punches. Just like to this day, I wish I still had a copy of it, but I don't. I still think, and it was pithy. It wasn't like this long rambling nonsense thing with a lot. It was just like maybe it was a page maybe, and I just said exactly how I felt, why I felt this way, and what I saw. What I hoped our future could be. And to this day, I still say I think that was probably the greatest thing I've ever written. I mean, I really believe that. Anyway, so, I send the letter back, and as you're probably guessing, I never got a response. I sent a letter to a girl in Pittsburgh and hoping she would answer back.
Mm-hmm.
And she never did. You say and then it was weird because later, not a good bit later on, I would say, well, not that much later on, I guess like 5 years later, and this is kind of the weird epilogue to the story. So yeah, it was an odd kind of circumstance. This one day, just cruising the internet. This was before like Reddit was a thing. Like I don't know if anybody remembers Dig, but Dig kind of was Reddit before Reddit, and they did kind of the same thing. They would take all these, just accrue all these stories from around the internet. People would submit them, and then they'd get kind of ranked in different areas, and people would vote for them up and down, and blah blah blah. Similar, whole similar thing. Reddit basically stole their format, but anyway. So I came across this story on Dig, and it was similar in a lot of ways. It basically was a couple in Europe. They were younger. They met. I think one lived in England and the other one lived in like Spain, I think, if I recall correctly. And they had met over a summer after high school at like some kind of, those, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, like leadership events or something of that nature. And they had really hit it off, and then they separated after the whatever the month or two they were together. But the guy, well, I think it was as I'm recalling, the girl, kind of didn't give up. And a few months after, I guess, that, she had written a letter, and she never got a response. And then they, just went their separate ways and, and lived their lives. Both of them, got married and blah, blah, blah. But as it turns out, what happened, the letter was delivered, but I guess whoever got the mail at the guy's house put it up on their mantle, and somehow it got like behind something, like a picture or something like that. And when this family went to move finally, they took all the stuff down and they found this letter behind the picture.
Wow.
And it's a good 20 years later, right? And so, finally, I guess whoever, found it, gave it to the guy, and he read it and was like, oh my God, I missed out on this opportunity. And at this point, I think fortuitously, both of them were single. And, they had gotten married, gotten divorced, whatever the story was. And, he followed up and tracked her down and because of this letter. And yeah, they got together. I mean, at least at that point, whatever it was, I say like 2004, 2005, when I read this, they were, they got together again and, were in love and all that happy crap. And, so that, idiot me thinks, well, maybe that was a similar case. Maybe, oh my God, maybe she never got it. Maybe it got lost or some weird crap. I don't know. I mean, I remember thinking that at the time. It's like, how could you ignore that? But again, I mean, this story, kind of lit a fire under my ass in a way. And so I tracked her down. I got, the internet at that point was a thing. And and I could, so I did actually track her down and send an email, to which I got a response from her husband. And I didn't know she was married. And the husband was like, yeah, don't ever contact her again. And I was like, because I said I linked to the story and everything, not trying to be like a weirdo or stalker or whatever, but this story, it's like, how could I, man, that sounds, wow, well, maybe she just didn't get the letter, or maybe whatever. And so, yeah, and I got this kind of, whatever you call it, cease and desist order from the,
Yeah.
and I just kind of went, yeah, I emailed back and I said, look, I had no idea she was married. I apologize. And, yeah, I'm done. And I'll never contact her again. And I never have. But, that song really, this song, Closer to the Heart, really came back. And, like you had said, it was one of those songs that I just kept playing. And just, and even though it made me feel horrible in a certain way, it was a good kind of horrible, if that makes sense. It kind of comforted me in a way. If the same thing could happen to Prince, an international genius music superstar, where he sent a letter to someone that he thought, he loved, or, she loved him, and she never responded, well, then, I guess I shouldn't feel so bad. But, it definitely, was the song then that I just kept, repeating and came back to again and again, especially in that time period. And then again, I did haul it out. I'm not going to lie, in that, that whatever it was, 2004, 2005, and kind of listen to it again and be like, dredge up those old weird feelings. But
so it's kind of like your go-to, pity parties.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit. Yes, that's a good way to sum it up. Yes.
Sorry.
Look, that is perfect. I mean, I don't deny it. I shouldn't do that. You shouldn't indulge. And I know that. It's like you don't, this is a road you probably shouldn't go down. But
every once in a while you want to go down it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I don't, I listened to, the album again today before coming on here, and it's just, I don't know. I can't say. Yeah, it does. I can't say that, I don't think of those things or think of maybe what could have been or should have been or, I wanted to be. But ultimately, those things didn't come to pass. So, but I can still, there's no point in there's nothing horrible in, indulging in a little bit of, I don't know, whatever, like you said, pity or fantasy or whatever. So, at least in my mind,
No, I agree. And I think, like, in your example, it was literally sending a letter. But I think a lot of people can relate to just the notion of putting your heart on your sleeve, putting yourself out there, and then not getting the response back that you're hoping for, and in some cases getting no response back, which I don't know. I mean, what would have been worse for you? Would it have been another letter back saying that it's not gonna work out, I'm not interested, we blah blah blah, or just getting nothing? I would think nothing would be worse.
Yeah, nothing's worse. Yeah, because I said, like, then that's the thing. If I had gotten a definitive answer back, obviously that story several years later, with the people in Europe, wouldn't have been like a kind of a flashpoint or something. I would have probably went, oh, that's kind of interesting, and da da da. But if I had gotten a definitive answer back, I wouldn't have thought to myself, "Oh my God, maybe it was lost," like this letter, And that's the oh geez, and it starts working on your mind a little bit, and So if I had gotten, the not knowing is the worst part for sure.
Right. You couldn't ask her to check her spam folder to see if your email went straight to the spam. So you're just kind of wondering, just scratching your head, did she even get it?
You can't really block the mailman, but.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that story. Much appreciated.
No problem.
Brings the lyrics and a song like this kind of full circle, and kind of how some of these songs that Prince writes really hit home for some more than others. And that's what's really kind of cool about music and cool about the lyrics to music, is something that just really hits somebody hard because of what they went through and any parallels that they can make to the song. And then another person can listen to it and feel nothing. And both reactions are completely acceptable.
Sure. I mean, I'll go one step further even. I mean, when I like sing along to this song, I actually still say there was a girl in Pittsburgh. I don't say there was a girl in Paris.
That's cool. It makes it kind of your own.
No, totally. I still sing it that way. So yeah.
Okay, well, with the first verse, I think some of the interesting things that I wanted to quickly mention about this first verse is Prince is speaking in the third person, even though he kind of attempts to provide enough clues to allow you to believe that he's singing about himself. The whole sometimes lonely musician line. So he's singing in third person, but you kind of get the impression that he's singing about himself. Is that what you get out of that too?
Oh, totally. I mean, I never for a moment thought that he was singing of anyone other than
Some other
himself.
lonely musician,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Not
Yeah,
not for. I mean, if somebody has proof that he's singing about someone other than himself, then fine. But no, I don't think for a second that he's not singing about himself here. But he's singing obviously, and maybe that's how he could get this painful experience out in a way. He's detaching himself a little bit by
sure.
speaking in the third person, not saying I sent a letter to this girl in Paris and she didn't answer, and what am I going to do about that? You
Right.
know,
Right.
so I think maybe that's a little bit of a coping mechanism, but still not a terrible one. It kind of adds a little mystery, I guess, to the song.
hmm Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. And another thing, and you pretty much already touched on it, so I'll just mention it briefly, but the whole aspect of him calling himself lonely and putting that into context of where he was in his life, which you already did with just mentioning the Dave Chappelle show and where I mean, he was late 1984. He was the biggest that he would ever be in terms of his career and in terms of his popularity. But that just kind of goes to show you if he was in a place where he could call himself sometimes lonely, or even use the word lonely to describe himself whatsoever, that just kind of goes to show that being surrounded by people all the time, especially if they're employees, people who are answering to you and you're they're on the payroll, so to speak. That doesn't mean that at the end of the day, when he's all by himself and just alone with his thoughts, that he wouldn't necessarily feel loneliness and wanting that emotional connection that he was either missing at the time or was trying to woo somebody. There's a number of women in his life around this time that, if this were to be a true story, if this were to have some truth to it, even if it didn't involve a woman in Paris, one could make some connections to a number of different women that he was kind of seeing at the time or trying to see at the time. So I just thought it was interesting about, the most popular part of his career, and he's still calling himself a sometimes lonely musician. And then the line "acting out a whim," I just take that to mean like he shot his shot. Like they say, go shoot your shot, and he did. He shot his shot with this girl in Paris by sending a letter, and it didn't, it basically banked off the rim, so he didn't make it.
Yeah, no, and that's I think that's the line, and in that that stanza there that really gets me is like acting on a whim is only good for a condition of the heart. Yeah, I mean, and I said that personal story obviously is the kind of the, if you want to call it the punchline, I guess, to whatever. And a lot of people, and I've never been that way, and I think a lot of people will shy away from that. Like they think that maybe, not that it's great, but the crushed feeling afterwards if you don't get what you want, or you don't think what's gonna it doesn't connect the way you think it should, is worse. That's the terrible part, and it's not great. But the not knowing, again, like I said, I think is worse too. It's like, well, I love this girl, I'm not just gonna let her go. I have to say something.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
it goes hand in hand with the whole notion of you'll never get what you want if you don't go for
if
it.
you don't try,
And
exactly.
just like if you don't try, you'll never know.
And there is the
And
potential to fall off the cliff, or the great line from, and not to get too literary here, but the great line from Cyrano de Bergerac: "When you reach for a star, there's a long way to fall."
hmm yeah, that's exactly what this is basically saying.
Yeah, and you have to understand that, and understand that when you hit the ground, it's going to suck,
Yeah.
but you reached for that star, nonetheless.
All right. So that's the first verse, and then before he even goes into a chorus, he goes right into the next one. So it takes him a long time to get to the lyrics, but when he does, he's on it. He
Yeah,
really just starts. The rest of the song pretty much has got lyrics. So it's basically two halves of a 6.5 minute song, without and with. So the next verse is, "There was a dame from London who insisted that he love her, then left him for a real prince from Arabia. Now isn't that a shame? that sometimes money buys you everything and nothing. Love, it only seems to buy a terminal condition of the heart. Okay, so second verse. Here he's taken us to another place. Now we're in London. Whether or not these are real people that he met, I think that is highly debatable. But if it's just lyrics to a song, I think he's just I think he likes the idea of it being like at this point he's been a world traveler, world tours. So the fact that he's been around the world and he was able to meet people from different countries and meet pretty women. Sure, he could have a crush in Paris or a crush in London. It just, once again, it kind of takes us out of ourselves and out of our element a little bit and transport us to these foreign countries. Or, if you live in Paris and London and you listen to a song and, there's a cool callback to your city or your country. But for us in America, it's like, oh, cool. He's got these dames all over the world that he's fancying. So now he's in the UK and he's got one in London. And I thought like the second line is kind of cool because it tripped me up originally. There was a dame from London who insisted that he love her. And I thought like, well, shouldn't that say who insisted that she love him? But now I'm like, no, wait, she's telling him, you need to love me. I insist that you love me. Allegedly, that's what I get from this then.
Yeah, when hearing it back in the day and, as it being in, like 14 or whatever in like 8th grade, it was a neat twist to hear that rather than, just the guy pursuing the girl. This girl was, clearly pursuing him. I mean, that's what I take from it.
Yeah, and this whole notion that she pursued him initially, but then ultimately left him, it kind of begs the question: what happened? Why did she do such a 180 on it, where she was the one pursuing him, and then left him for a real prince from Arabia?
Well, I mean, the clear answer, obviously, and I guess maybe we're going to get to that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I mean, money talks and bullshit runs a marathon.
Yeah.
I mean, not that Prince didn't have money, but I don't at that point. But I'm sure a prince from Arabia had 10 or 20 times what Prince had.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
This woman obviously was one of those, but it still hurts, a little bit. I mean, there's a bit of that sting, clearly, when somebody chooses someone over you for whatever reason. So, yeah, and that's what he's kind of relating to at the end, obviously. Oh, you're going to get to that, I'm sure. And I've just spoke about it, but okay.
That's all right. Spoilers, right?
Spoiler alert. Too.
Yeah, right, like 35-year-old song. So for the second verse in a row, Prince makes some sort of coy attempt to put himself in these lyrics. First we had the sometimes lonely musician, then in second verse left him for a real prince. Not, me, who's just a guy named Prince from Minneapolis, who just happens to be a really brilliant musician. So once again, he's still speaking in the third person, but once again, he puts the clues in the verses that this song is supposed to be, he's the protagonist in this song. He's singing about that has this condition of the heart. And the whole, sometimes money buys you everything and nothing. But love, it only seems to buy you a terminal condition of the heart. So it's dangerous to fall in love because the end result could be heartbreak. I think one thing that was really kind of clever with putting himself in these lyrics, even if it's done covertly in a way, even though it's still pretty obvious to really anybody, but not just saying I, like I said, the whole third person thing. But I think what it does that's really kind of cool is if you believe that these are things that really happened to Prince, like he really did meet a girl in Paris that he sent a letter to, and he really did have a dame from London that left her for a prince from Arabia, then the delivery that he has in this song, the emotion that he conveys in the song, real heartbreak, it's more believable if you think that it really happened to him. You buy into that. That's how I like it. That's what I think about when somebody tries to insert themselves in a very obvious way into a song like this. It's like, wow, this could have really happened, and I totally am on board with this song's emotions now.
Totally. I mean, in my mind, these things happen. I mean, he's writing biographical stuff or autobiographical stuff. I mean, I that's what I always took away from it. I mean, the way, how you can hear, the kind of the passion and the pathos in his voice, at least in my mind, when he's singing about these things, he's almost getting kind of angry. Now, isn't that a shame? And it could be, kind of the bombast maybe of the song, but in my mind, I mean, I don't know. If as an artist you bring what's inside you to it, right? It's and if you didn't, you have to well up that emotion and that power to kind of get somewhere. And if you're thinking about something, you're thinking about maybe this person or this situation, and it makes you angry or sad or however, you can tap into that to make this piece of art, something else, something better, something greater. And again, yeah, in my mind, I mean, I don't know. I think these things were real. He was tapping into real stuff that happened to him. Yeah.
All that matters is that we think that he did, because then that, once again, that really makes the song that much more compelling and, believable. And we believe the emotion. We believe him when he sings the song and the way he sings it. So, okay. So anyway, the chorus then is, thinking about you driving me crazy. Then he says, oh, my friends all say it's just a phase. Every day is a yellow day. I'm blinded by the daisies in your yard. Okay, so the chorus is kind of cool. I really like the chorus. I like how he sings it primarily. But, the words are cool too. The words have some interesting, there's some interesting metaphors here, I think. So, Jerry, what are some of the things that you kind of look at when you're thinking of the chorus? What are some of the emotions and some of the pictures that it paints for you?
Again, I guess, harkening back to my personal experience, I mean, thinking about you driving me crazy, it's definitely something I think a lot of us can relate to. Especially when, there's a situation where it's not working out quite the way you want it to. The thoughts that you have in your mind will can drive you mad. I mean, it may not even be anything reality, but what you're concocting in your mind is 1,000 times worse than probably what the reality is. And, and then your friends, try and help, but, maybe they're not such a great help. They just kind of want you to, be yourself. But it's like, yeah, okay, you're trying, but you're not helping all that much, unfortunately. It's not that I don't appreciate it. It's just, it's whatever you're saying is just kind of falling on deaf ears.
Well, they want you to get over it. Right?
Sure, and they want you to be your jovial, happy self. And well, it's not. That guy's not coming out to play today, guys. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about other shit. I got things on my mind. And yeah, and then the whole like blinded by the daisies in your yard. Now this is this is more recent. When I was younger, obviously, I was always kind of perplexed by those lines. But it seems in the last few years that there's been maybe a bit of a revelation or stories about that, and I'm sure maybe you've either read them or heard them, that around this time Prince had like a personal assistant that he really was enamored with, and she used to plant flowers and stuff like that, which is referred to in Nothing Compares to You as well. And I now hearing that clicked to me immediately to this woman. Like he's talking about her. Maybe I'm blinded by the daisies in your yard. Now it could mean something completely different, but that kind of clicked, that song, because they were basically referring more to the stuff in Nothing Compares to You. All the flowers, Mama, that you planted in the backyard all died when you went away.
Yeah, but right around the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And so that with the daisies in the yard, I did, now I kind of understand what he's referring to here, maybe. Because it said up until that point, I never really quite understood what he was referring to, and maybe it was something super personal to him, and that would make sense in my mind. That's what he was talking about here.
Oh yeah, that's very personal. I mean, if that's what he was referring to when writing these lyrics, then it's like nobody's going to know that except for him. Nobody's going to know that.
Well, and then her, hopefully, that maybe he's reaching out to her in a sense. I think sometimes, I think a lot of times these artists, I think he's still maybe lobbing missiles here and hoping things hit. Maybe she'll hear this and she'll come back or she'll be moved by it, and I don't know. It doesn't hurt to try.
Yeah, and even though nobody else but maybe Prince and this woman would have any kind of indication what he's referring to about the daisies in your yard. I'm blinded by the daisies in your yard. It's still it paints a very vivid picture for the listener, and it's a memorable line, and you can apply that and mean a lot of different things. Blinded by the daisies in your yard can just mean blinded by your beauty.
Sure. Yeah.
It could mean something like daisy is just a metaphor for something else. Blinded by, I mean, besides beauty and the literal daisies, and you just don't know what that is. But whatever it is, whatever this person has that attracts Prince, or the character he's singing from, if it's not Prince, it's so blinding, it's so brilliant, it's so amazing that every day he's thinking about her. It's driving him crazy.
Yeah.
Every day is a yellow day. And so I guess what I get out of every day is a yellow day. I mean, so yellow is kind of supposed to represent like sunniness and happiness and, good things, positive things. And up until this point, both of the first two verses of the song are they're telling sad stories of heartbreak. But that's why it's a little confusing, but not. It's confusing and maybe a little bit of a way to also express that in spite of these incidences, these negative incidences of heartbreak and failed attempts at wooing a woman, every day is a yellow day if he's thinking about this person, because she apparently has some sort of spell on him and allows him to kind of feel good about himself and feel good about his chances. I don't know. I mean, I get some positive vibes from that, even though it's a chorus in a song about heartbreak. Maybe I'm just not seeing something with the "every day is a yellow day" line
And I'm
that
blinded.
other people do.
Yeah. I think it seems like an odd gear shift. I mean, you say, thinking about you driving me crazy. My friends all say it's just a phase. But and then it's like, oh, every day is a yellow day, and I'm blinded by the daisies in your yard. And it could be completely that, like, I'm blinded by your beauty. I'm blinded by, something about you really captured me. And I said it was a line, those last couple lines of the chorus always kind of mystified me, but it kind of crystallized a little bit. I said, hearing those stories about this, this personal assistant. That's to me what it. And from that point forward, I kind of equated it to that. So, but yeah. It could totally be something else, and I could be completely wrong. But in my mind, I don't know. That's what it means. So that's what I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, the only other thing that I came up with, and it was a bit of a stretch, but I wanted to put it out there in case anybody else had ever thought of this for Yellow Day. So when you're in love, the color red is typically used to represent love. You have the red hearts and Valentine's Day, and just the color symbolizes love. Yellow doesn't necessarily symbolize love. Yellow symbolizes something else, like something a little more innocuous, like friendship or happiness, but not like true feelings of deep love for somebody. So maybe that's the only other thing I could be considered as a potential explanation or interpretation of that, is a yellow day. If you're in love with somebody, a yellow day maybe isn't so great. Maybe you want to get it to a red day or something like that, and you're stuck in this friend zone that a yellow day represents. It may be considered a stretch, but I thought it was at least worth bringing up in case anybody else had thought of that.
Yeah, maybe, you know what, and that makes more sense, I guess, in the context of, and I don't know, maybe that's where my mind is, but of the thing I was saying about the personal assistant woman, and I think, maybe if she was his personal assistant or whatever, and he wanted to pursue something of that, and, and she didn't, and she wanted to keep it professional and keep it like, okay, and that's maybe why she took off, because, he wanted maybe a little bit more and she didn't, and that the yellow thing maybe saying, yeah, we're kind of stuck in the friend zone, or, I mean, every day is a yellow day. That now that you mentioned that, to me, I could definitely see that. It's more of a, here I am in the friend zone, and I love you and I love your flowers that you're planting in my yard or your yard, however you want to refer to it. And, it's not happening. So,
All right, so the third verse then, and it's really the last verse of completely new lyrics. There was a woman from the ghetto who made funny faces just like Clara Bow. How was I to know that she would wear the same cologne as you and giggle the same giggle that you do? Whenever I would act a fool, the fool with a condition of the heart. Okay, so with this third verse now, the thing to note right off the bat is now he's in the first person. So how was I to know? And whenever I would act a fool, so he's replaced referring to himself in the third person with the first person. So that's different. Another thing that's different with this third verse is that he doesn't mention some exotic location in another country. He's talking about a woman from the ghetto. So it kind of gives the impression that he's talking about somebody in his hometown or, the city that he lives in. That's what I get out of that, at least, talking about something local, somebody local. So then he mentions Clara Bow in this verse as well. And for anybody who's not really up on their 1920s silent movie stars, Clara Bow was that. She was the it girl, otherwise known as, because I guess she started a movie called It, and she was very popular, so they just called her the it girl, and it kind of stuck, and then it became a phrase in our lexicon that we still use today, I guess. Kind of cool, but she was a silent film actress primarily until, talkies were invented. And so the whole made funny faces just like Clara Bow. Of course, you have to assume that as a silent film star, she had to do a lot of emoting with her face.
Oh yeah.
So, funny faces faces in general were a very important part of acting back then.
Of course, yeah.
So with this line, or with this verse, sorry, what, besides like what I mentioned with the whole mention of Clara Bow and kind of the callback to this semi-obscure, at least from the 1980s to the 1920s, film star, and bringing it back locally and mentioning himself in the first person, did you kind of get that as well, or anything else out of this verse, Jerry?
Yeah, I mean, I always, again, like you, I did notice that it was suddenly he switched it to the first person, and I never really, I guess maybe, I said he was just dropping the pretense at that point. I don't know, and just saying, here I am, he was kind of maybe letting Prince be Prince in a sense, or letting him be himself. But strangely enough, I and this is, every time I hear the song, and I still think of it, when he refers to the woman in the ghetto who made funny faces, and now it has nothing to do with her, I'm sure, but in my mind it does, because she became like super popular at that point. That was when she kind of took off and became like I remember seeing her stand up on HBO around the same time, and this is before she became like a real actress, Whoopi Goldberg. And I guess those two things just kind of, it was like a confluence of things. So in my mind, he's talking about Whoopi Goldberg. Now he probably isn't, but I don't know. I just, a woman in the ghetto who made funny faces, because I don't know if you know Whoopi Goldberg's story, but she was like had a real hard life up until she kind of hit it big, doing stand up and stuff like that, and then did movies, and she was realistically a woman from the ghetto. And that was her whole story leading up to, her big like stand up kind of breakthrough. And the more interesting thing too is that now, again, I had, as like I've said, a 14-year-old kid, I really had no idea who Clara Bow was.
Right.
But I can tell you this, and this is obviously before Google, so I wanted to know who the hell Clara Bow was. So I went to the library in my school and looked up Clara Bow in the encyclopedia.
Mm-hmm.
And read about her and saw a couple pictures of her, and now I was like, okay, now I get what he's kind of talking about. This woman who can make these very expressive faces, and that she was a silent film star. So, yeah, that was, that kind of thing. I mean, how often do pop songs or, lead you to, look up things, in the library? Not too often.
Nope.
So I did that, and I found out who Clara Bow was, and then again, that, made perfect sense. So
it does make you wonder what movie or movies of Clara's that Prince saw to make him kind of interested enough in her to reference her in this song.
Yeah, I would wonder. I mean, most
Yeah.
certainly. And he obviously saw something or knew something of her to refer to her that, that way. I can definitely say those are two things that I took away from that verse is the fact that, I don't know, I always think of Whoopi Goldberg as who he's referring to, and he's probably not. And Clara Bow was, obviously made me do a little bit of homework to figure out who the hell she was. And I think it's kind of cool that a pop song can elicit that kind of interest.
Yeah, yeah. And so this verse is interesting as well because he's not he's not really saying that he's in love with the woman from the ghetto who made funny faces just like Clara Bow, right?
No, yeah, he's fascinated.
He's
That's why I think
fascinated by her, but she wears the same cologne as you. And you, who is you? And that's the big question. The you in this verse is the person that he's supposedly singing it to, and the
right.
person that he's got this condition of the heart over. And it's not the woman from the ghetto. The woman from the ghetto just reminded him.
Being in her presence, I guess, reminded him of her. But again, there's two separate women, obviously, he's talking about in the first two verses. Which
or
one?
None of the above, right?
Yeah, which one is you? Right. Or again, I said even in the chorus, I think that he's referring to another woman. So there's three women up until that point, until we get to this, the third stanza here, or third, part of it. So who is you? Reminds me of you. Who's the you? In his mind, it's obviously very clear, but I don't know. We don't know. We can just assume.
Yeah, all we can do is just take from this verse that, there's some smell, there's some odor that reminds him, that kind of takes him back to, it's like the sensory reminder of this love that he has, and it just takes just a trigger just like that to smell the same smell that she was wearing, and then it kind of brings him right back to this situation where he's heartbroken again. Sure. Even if he was like having a good day and hadn't even like spent a moment thinking about her. But now, he met this woman, and this woman's wearing this cologne that smells the same as yours. And so now it's like, shit, now I got a condition of the heart again.
Yeah, I'm back to square one. Thanks. I was having fun listening to this, funny person, and we're hanging out with this funny person, and now suddenly, honestly, I mean, I didn't realize it until, probably as an adult, or, a later age adult, how powerful smell can be as something that triggers emotions or triggers memories. And, that makes perfect sense here. Just, just certain smells will instantly, at least again, I don't know, just the way I am. I don't know if anybody else is the same, but from what I've read, it does seem that way, that smell can just almost instantly transport you back to a certain place or time, and it like clicks like that in your brain for whatever reason. So I can definitely see that, happening here. And they said he's back at square one with his condition of the heart, even though he was having fun with this woman who's making goofy faces and stuff.
Yeah, he's acting a fool with this woman.
Yeah.
Just trying to have a good time.
Trying to have a good time, and shit, she smells like you, and now I'm sad again.
So then he comes back to the chorus again. The chorus is the same. It's not sung the same. And the way he sings the chorus the second time, I mean, he does this so well in so many songs, but I just think the way he sings the second chorus with the multi-tracked vocals is just brilliant. It sounds otherworldly, and it definitely takes me where he wants me to go, I guess, as the listener. And that's to a really emotional place. Even if I'm not relating necessarily to the heartbreak that he's singing about, I can't help but feel what he's wanting us to feel, even though I have no reason to, because he's just doing such a great job of putting that in his vocal delivery. And so while the lyrics aren't any different, the way he sings the chorus at the end of the song always gets me, and it's just one of the highlights of the song for me.
Yeah, I mean, it really takes you to, that, if you want to call it that. I mean, the emotional high, I think, which is great. It really, like you said, you're feeling what this man is feeling in that moment, and and we're going to get to it. I mean, it said it does kind of trail off and then leads you to this, where he kind of get you with a little bit of a gut punch at the end, and you know, and it gives you the super high, and then kind of takes you to the low, and where you're caught up in how fantastic this sounds, and it's like, oh, you respond to it, and you're like, wow, this is so good, and even though it's you're still singing about things that are sad, but and then it just kind of trails off into this this kind of little epilogue.
Yeah, yeah. He starts it off like with the multi-track vocals, but by the time he gets to the last line, I'm blinded by the daisies in your yard, it's just one voice that you're hearing again, and then he sings it in the falsetto, and he just goes so high, like higher than you can imagine he could go, and then he extends it. It does the vocal acrobatics where he extends the line, and before the next vocal comes in, right on top of it, practically for the outro, and that's with bringing it back, basically bringing the song full circle, at least the lyrical portion of the song full circle, by repeating the lines, "There was a girl in Paris whom he sent a letter to, hoping she would answer back. She never answered back, and now he's got a condition of the heart."
That swirl of emotions, and you're right, it's the punchline, or we're gonna call it, or it's the gut punch. It's just kind of, it's wrapping it up, and it's like, using that technique and writing like a story or a short story specifically, where it's a callback, right? And comedians do the same thing. You call back to something you mentioned earlier, and that's what this is. And I can't say, I mean, that I, at least up until that point in 1985, that I had ever heard a song do that, where it kind of takes you back. It has this call back to the beginning of the story, and really wraps things up in a nice little package. Maybe it's a sad little package, but it's still totally told the little story. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, it's just, and to me, well, and you said just more about the lyrics, but I think what follows that, that when he trails off at the end there, you hear the drum beat that sounds like a heart, and that boom 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 boom, and then it just kind of like trails off, and it's just beautiful. I mean, it really, again, it just kind of, this is just next level shit here. We're like, you're not going to hear this on, people aren't going to play this on the radio. It's like, it's just not that song. And it's like, okay, this isn't not like a radio hit. This isn't like, something you're going to knock down into a single. You're not going to do like a dance remix of Condition of the Heart. But still, it definitely has its place in this canon of, great songs, and especially great, ballads or love songs that really take you to some really crazy emotional places. And there aren't too many artists that can really do that with a consistent, on a consistent level, as much as Prince did. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the first verse mentions the letter that he wrote to the girl in Paris, hoping she'd answer back, but he never says that she didn't answer back until the very end of the song, even though one can make a very educated guess that she didn't write back, or if she did write back, it wasn't what he wanted, because, he's lonely, and acting out on a whim is only good for a condition of the heart. But just to know, for him to put it out there, whom he sent a letter to, and she never answered back, that just, it just like stabs you in the heart to know that not only did she reject him, she just flat out ignored him. She never answered back. So now he's got a condition of the heart.
As I said, I don't know if I can relate to that, Jason.
Yeah, right. You can't relate to it at all.
I don't know. I don't know if anything in my life has ever. Why am I even on this podcast? I don't even know.
Yeah, just think about it a little harder. See if you can come up with a good story.
I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I have.
No,
I don't know if I have the strength.
You kind of laid yourself bare out earlier in the show, so we'll just.
Yeah, that's again, I'm bringing you back, like I was saying. I'm taking you full circle, baby.
Yeah, you did. Now you gotta go back and lick your wounds and listen to the song before I go to bed tonight.
Yeah, I think I got a bottle of whiskey here I need to crawl into.
And the kind of another thing that's cool about how this song ends, besides what we've talked about thus far. So as I mentioned, this song is followed up by Raspberry Beret, but Prince lets us as the listener take our time with this before jumping right into like this really kind of fun poppy upbeat song.
Sure, totally.
I don't know how many seconds, but I feel like there's a good solid 15, 20 seconds of just silence at the end of the song before we get to Raspberry Beret. Maybe it just feels like that. I might have to go back and actually count the seconds, but it takes a while. And which is great because it really kind of allows us to take it all in and just catch our breath before he kicks us, in the ass with Raspberry Beret.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because now that I'm thinking about it, and what you're saying there at the end, it kind of makes sense. But I remember distinctly, again, on the first kind of listen through the whole album. Now that you're saying that, because it's kind of silent in the beginning of the song too, and I remember distinctly thinking like, all right, what, and like listening to it, and then like turning it way up. Like, it's like, what is something happening? It's like, and then it's sudden, suddenly the music, and it's like, oh, okay, something is happening. Like thinking, that especially in the beginning, that there was nothing, kind of something is, something going on, what's going on, and it was really kind of quiet, and then it builds obviously until he starts singing, and then it gets a bit, more, reserved or quiet again. But yeah, now that you said that, I remember distinctly doing that when I first listened, turning it up, thinking, is somebody playing something? And it's like this kind of really light, guitar and piano, and it's okay, yeah. So I had to turn it up a bit to understand that there's a song going on here.
All right. Well, I think we've done Condition of the Heart justice. Now we're both in our feelings a little bit, and
a little bit.
We probably should end it here. So, any last thoughts? Any last comments you wanted to make, Jerry?
Not really. I mean, I said, if anybody who's a casual Prince fan listening to this and maybe hasn't gotten into the deeper cuts on some of his albums, or maybe kind of, glossed over them or fast forwarded over them in the past, I think this is one you should definitely revisit, because it really, a man who could write such incredible emotional ballads. You can name, both you and I, I'm sure, could name, a dozen off the top of our heads. But in my mind, I think this is the best of them. I think Adore would be a close second, but this one is, pretty much right there at the top of his kind of love song repertoire.
Yeah, I agree. I just adore this song. I adore it. So I listen to it often, even sometimes as the only song I might listen to from this album. I love it so much. So I'm on the same page as you, that's for sure. All right. Well, thanks again for joining me, Jerry. Why don't you go take care of that condition of the heart, feed it some whiskey and sleep, and see how you feel in the morning. Dr. Jason. Dr. Jason insists.
That's your prescription? All right. Thanks,
Yep.
Doctor.
All right.
Maybe I wanted a prescription from Dr. Fink, not you.
Sorry. All right. Well, I'll go get Dr. Fink on the next podcast that we're on, and he can prescribe whatever it is that you need.
You better.
All right. Well, this has been the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. I wanted to thank Jerry Bonner again. Jerry, do you have anything you wanted to, any place in social media you wanted to point people to? Anything that you're doing?
Yeah, just my Twitter, where I talk about various things, sometimes Prince related, sometimes not. It's at jbonner71. That's my main social media outlet these days. So check me out there if you're interested. And, I love to discuss any and all the topics we discussed here in this rather lengthy and sad podcast. So there
yes. You go. Yes. We've been on a while, haven't we?
All
right. That's okay. It's a great song and it deserves time. All right. Well, thanks again. And until next time, goodbye.